There. So we're only a few days out from starting our Hungry Ghost reset. I just want to remind you to fill out the interest form so that you get the link for the free intro call on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And before we get started on Monday for the 21-day reset, it's going to run from the 21st or the 22nd of September all the way to the 12th of October, ending just in time for the best parts of spooky season. In addition to what I posted earlier, to prep for the reset, to have some realistic expectations, and when we're doing the prep, to really kind of be mindful to support your nervous system. There's different ways in which we can be clinging to some of these vices and habits and whatnot. Some of them, it's purely dopamine, and then some of them have more of a chemical component that maybe the body has started to adapt to and expect. And that might be emotional, mental, physical, or chemical. So the workbook really is there to help with the emotional components of it and to give some self-reflection and maybe some ideas of how you can support the process and walk you through it. The full reset, where we work one-on-one together, that's more so that you have like a comforting person to check in on with over the time together. And then if you're doing it on your own, which I see no reason why you shouldn't, and I'm going to be, still acting as a resource because I just think this is an important thing to be putting out into the world. This idea of balance over perfection and, reclaiming some of our undiluted essence. If it is more chemical, what do we do about that, right? So an example of this is coffee. I quit coffee a few times every year because I just realized I'm like starting to drink too much of it and I'm becoming an agitated mess. Those first few days without coffee are tough. It's tough. You got a headache. It feels bad because you're going through withdrawal. And we don't always talk about coffee as a drug, but it kind of is. So what I typically do when I'm cutting out coffee is I spend a week or so drinking tea, and I start to taper down so that my body isn't in shock. And then by the time I'm actually off caffeine, I don't have a headache and I'm not miserable, and I'm actually like, oh yeah, why did I ever drink caffeine in the first place, if that makes sense. The same might apply for things like nicotine. Yes, you can white knuckle, cold turkey quit nicotine, but if you have a really stressful month ahead of you, that might not be the best thing for you, right? That might cause I don't need you to have a dark night of the soul to break a habit, right? So if it makes sense for you to get a nicotine patch, nicotine gum, nicotine lozenge, go for it. I think the patch is the best for this program, and the idea is to just break that oral fixation, so that you're still getting the nicotine, but you're breaking the habit of needing to do that. However, if that's going to keep you from taking up another vice that's worse, go for that. You know yourself. Marijuana, that's not always chemical. It's just that a lot of times people who are consistent marijuana users, that's their main coping mechanism. So we're going to really, really want to look at other coping mechanisms to help support you. And we can talk a little bit about that, what's actually appealing. But in general, you want to be bringing in teas. You might work with CBD instead of THC to just so that you have something similar. But if you're, an example, if you're smoking marijuana to go to sleep, it might be a good idea to invest in some chamomile with lavender in it, or ashwagandha, or, any of those kinds of herbs that are going to help relax the nervous system. It's going to be much better for your adrenals, for your liver to be doing that, much more hydrating, great for your lungs. But you will still have somewhat of an herbal ritual. Sometimes people do smoking herbs. So I know people who've taken breaks from marijuana usage and they've smoked mugwort, or I can't think of the other one that helps heal your lungs. You go for it, but I think breaking the habit again of reaching for something to smoke is in your best interest. but that's up to you, however you want to do it, however you're working through it. And the list goes on. You know, I mentioned in the slides, alcohol, making sure that you have like a case of seltzer water in the fridge so you can still like crack something open and it's cold and refreshing and carbonated, or if it's a more serious chemical dependency where like you haven't gone without a drink in a really long time, you might need to have a team that can help you, and there's resources that can support you to not drink in a safe way, and that might involve inpatient or an outpatient program. This can still be a resource, but this would not be the end all if that's the case. If it's a drug dependency or a drug addiction, you know, same case, you might want to look into a team or resources. If you're more of a social user, this program would probably be good for you. If it's a little bit more severe, you might need more support outside of this program. We want to think about replacement habits, but if we can try not to choose from any of those, it's going to be more helpful, right? In some cases, one of those is going to be a much better shift, and we'll allow it. So you oftentimes see people who are quitting alcohol, they end up smoking more. Maybe it's not the best thing from a lung health perspective, but if their overall well-being is improving, then we're just gonna allow it, right? If they're able to have a healthier life all around. All of the tech addictions, social media, porn, video games, TV, all of that, we're going to probably deactivate accounts temporarily, you know, and look for non-tech alternatives. You could also download apps that can help you limit your time on those. Just understanding those are going to be hard because we're all super addicted. But you will definitely feel more at ease as time goes on because they're the least natural, if you know what I mean. Our little brains were not made to take in any of that. Whereas like we have nicotine receptors and we make cannabis, like we do this in our body. You know, alcohol is a little bit more complicated, but it's been around so long that I think our genes kind of have some idea. This stuff is new and it's more stressful to the nervous system. So we're going to want to replace that with like a paper book, going on walks. If it's the porn sex type stuff, we're going to probably join the gym. We're going to want to be more active. We're going to try to find other ways to focus that energy. Generally, you know, creativity is going to be your bestie during this process. So getting a journal, have your guitar out, have your sewing kit, have your crafts in eyesight. I'm more, you know, I like to have my yoga mat out when I'm doing this so that whenever I'm feeling anything, I can just like stretch it out, move it out, breathe it out. I have a drum that I like to play with when I'm, you know, whatever. So just make it more about your interest, but also this idea that, you know, abstaining from some of these things might be difficult. So I just want to set up a realistic expectation, and for you to know there are deeper ways to be supported within this program. You don't have to do the whole thing on your own, and that the workbook is really there to hold emotional space for you as well. And I'll be posting on here. If you are abstaining from the tech stuff, the notebook will probably be your best option, and you can always print it out. The other option is I might share some of this on Discord or Substack or something like that, so that you can at least not have to use the main social media apps. I think that's usually what the issue is just spending too much time on the main ones. But if that's not the case for you, you know yourself, and you can let me know. Okay, that's all I got. I'll see you on Sunday. I might for them though. Take care.